So hi everybody, my name is Sarah and this is Sinead, and we're going to talk to you about speech and language therapy. So we're both actually new graduates. We finished up in Trinity in May. So I'm going to start off talking to you about what speech and language therapists actually do, and then Sinead is going to talk about the course here in Trinity. Oh, and we're going to try and keep it short and sweet so that there'll be plenty of time for questions afterwards as well. So firstly, speech and language therapists or SLTs work with people with communication and swallowing disorders, their families and other professionals involved in their care. So just to clear up a few myths, we don't teach English, drama or elocution, and we certainly don't put marbles in people's mouths. So what is communication? It really is a lot more than just words. So it's a central part of our lives. Having a communication difficulty doesn't only affect how you sound, but it also acts as a barrier to accessing many parts of our lives. So education, making friends, getting a job, working itself, and lots more. So it's not just talking, as I said before, it's made up of a lot of different parts. So for example, language refers to listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Articulation and phonology refer to the sounds that our mouths make. Voice refers to the sound that comes out of our voice box in our throats. Fluency is the flow and rhythm of our speech, and non-verbal communication includes our facial expression, gesture, and body language. So what is a communication disorder? Well, it can affect one or more areas that I've just mentioned, and a lot of the time communication disorders are hidden. So for example, there are actually more children in preschools with language impairments than there are preschool-aged children who have autism. Yet autism is the one that everybody sees, that everybody knows about. Language impairments aren't that widely known. So just to go back to the previous slide, an example of a communication disorder affecting language might be a person who's had a stroke and they then have problems finding the right word or understanding everything that's being said to them. Someone who might have problems with articulation might be someone who's had surgery on their tongue for tongue cancer. A teacher who's consistently sounding hoarse and losing their voice might need treatment for a voice disorder. And fluency disorders usually come in the form of stammering, so like Colin Firth in The King's Speech. So dysphagia is a swallowing disorder. This is when someone has difficulties with eating, drinking, or swallowing. They may have difficulty chewing food, or food might be going down the wrong way into their chest or their lungs. And this can be really serious because it can cause chest infections and malnutrition and a lot more. So it's really important for us to recognize and treat. People who might have problems with swallowing would include people who've had strokes, people who've had brain injuries, physical disabilities, and also children who are selective or picky eaters, like some kids who have autism. So, as communication and swallowing problems can occur at any stage during a person's life, an SLT can work with people of all ages. So some of the children we work with might include children who have physical impairments such as cerebral palsy, cleft palate, or intellectual disability, or kids who are otherwise considered to be growing up fine, who are attending mainstream school, but they might have problems making particular sounds. We also work with a wide variety of adults, so we might work with adults who have neurological disorders such as multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, motor neuron disease, or adults who have experienced brain injury, so stroke, brain surgery, road traffic accidents, things like that. And we've actually had a lot of questions on how do you specialise in SLT and when do you specialise. The course itself is actually set, so you learn about all of these things during the course. And then afterwards, once you're out working, it really depends on what kind of job you have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where you'll be working next. And you don't have to go on and do any postgraduate courses like in medicine. So it's not like you have to do a course in geriatrics in order to work with older people, or do a course in disabilities in order to be able to work with kids with disabilities. You can do that right away, go straight into work once you finish the course. So who else do we work with? We always work within a team that has the child or adult that we're working with at the centre of the team. So an example might be if you're developing a computer system to help a child with a severe physical disability communicate. You'd need to talk to the OT about, are they able to move their hands? or their fingers to pick the right pictures on the computer screen. You'd need to talk to their physio about how you're going to mount that type of computer onto their wheelchair. Is it possible to do that? You'd need to talk to the school about what sort of words are really important for them in the classroom so that you can put them into that computer system. And most importantly, you need to talk to the person themselves and their family to work out, what's the best system for them, what do they need. For an adult with a swallowing disorder in a hospital, you'd obviously be talking to their doctor about their overall care, their overall medical condition. You'd be talking to their nurses about how they're eating during the day. Is there a chest condition? Are they getting chest infections at all? You might talk to the nurses about some recommendations for preparing the food to make it easier for that person to eat. You might talk to the OT about specialist equipment to help them eat. You talk to the dietitian about is this person getting enough calories despite their swallowing disorder, and the list just goes on and on and on, really. So we also work in a variety of settings, as I mentioned before. You might be in a special school supporting kids with disabilities. You might work in a community health centre with children with speech and language difficulties, or adults who've been discharged from hospital or who are living at home. You could be working with really sick adults or children in a hospital. You could be visiting people in their own homes. Nursing homes and mental health services are in italics up here because there's actually a lot of research going on in these areas at the moment. So the hope is that there'll be more jobs created in those areas in the future. So really, if you go through the course and you decide you really like working with adults in a hospital situation, then you would look for a hospital job, and that is how you specialise. Some people might go on and do a master's in the future, but you actually don't have to do a master's in ear, nose and throat surgery or anything like that in order to get there. And while you may actually specialise once you're in the hospital, so a lot of hospitals might have ENT specialists, SLTs, they might have neurosurgery specialist SLTs or neurology specialist SLTs who work with people with disorders like Parkinson's or motor neuron disease. So really, as you can tell, there's a lot of variety in speech and language therapy, and you work with many different types of people in different places depending on what area you go into. And really, even within a service, each day is very different from the last. So you could be helping someone who stutters to increase their fluency, enabling someone who has had a stroke to regain their speech, language and swallowing abilities, developing the speech and language of children and adolescents, and helping people use assistive systems of communication such as iPads or specialist computers. Or you could be counselling individuals and their families in order to better cope with the communication disorders they're experiencing. So continual learning is a really important part of being an SLT, and there's loads of opportunities to do it. So you can get involved in research, you can go on and do a master's, there are special interest group training days, conferences, lots of different training courses, and you're really, really encouraged to keep up your skills and learn new things because there always is a lot of development happening in the profession. And I'm sure everybody wants to know about the job opportunities. Firstly, I wouldn't make any decisions based on what things are like now. Things aren't great now, but a lot can change over 4 years, and things are improving at the moment. So just this week, the HSE actually announced a new recruitment drive for basic grade speech and language therapists, and the starting salary with them is just over 33 grand. You can also work within the voluntary sector, so charities like Enable Ireland or the Alzheimer's Association, a lot of charities like that. And there are a lot of hospitals that are HSE funded, but that actually govern themselves. So for example, Tala Hospital, the Mater, Beaumont, so they're not affected by any recruitment moratoriums that the HSE actually have. There are also a lot of opportunities abroad. We're really in demand in other countries, which is really great. And you can also work privately or work within someone else's private practice. So before I hand over to Sinead, has anyone got any burning questions they want to ask right now? We will be taking most questions at the end, but if there's anything that can't wait. Okay, now I'm going to hand you over to Sinead, who's going to talk about the course here in Trinity.
Thanks, Sarah. That was a really insightful overview of the broad spectrum of roles that the speech therapist undertakes. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what the course itself entails. As Sarah mentioned, we're new graduates of Trinity, and we undertook the course. So it is a 4-year honours degree that qualifies you to work and practice as a speech and language therapist. It's accredited by our own professional organisation of speech therapists here in Ireland, and we have a mutual recognition agreement. Excuse the typo. It's a mutual recognition agreement with the US, New Zealand, Canada, UK, and Australia, which allows our qualification to be recognised in all of these countries. Furthermore, as you saw on a previous slide, Singapore, there's big recruitment in Singapore. We can work. It's an internationally recognised course, and as all courses in Trinity are, Trinity has it's a good hallmark as well. So you can really travel with this degree. So I think the majority of people here are going via CAO route. The matriculation requirements are a pass in maths, a higher in honours, a higher C3 there in one of your languages, and a higher C3 in either maths or science. So I think they're the basic matriculation requirements for Trinity. So the points are about the 520, 530 mark. They fluctuate. I wouldn't make any decisions based on points. If you have a passion for speech and language therapy, I'd strongly urge you to pursue that. You can't predict what points a course will be in future years. You also need, following offer, if you receive an offer to undertake the course in speech therapy, you will need to be GARDA vetted and prove that you're immune to Hep B, but that's later down the line after you've been offered a place. For mature students, the majority of mature students have educational background in psychology or linguistics. So we had, in our own class, we had mature students who were nurses, ABA tutors, which is applied behavioural analysis tutoring, with children with autism. We had 2 individuals who had degrees in psychology, and we had a linguistics graduate as well. But possibly more importantly is the practical experience that you gain in speech therapy. So I would urge mature students, as well as, of course, school leaver students, to try and get some experience, visit a speech therapist, inquire with your local speech therapist in your local hospital, see if you can chat with them for an hour, maybe observe them for a day, so you have a real knowledge of what the role entails. Within the mature student route, you need to have a good knowledge of what it means to be a speech therapist, and its written application, your standard application, and then its interview as well. So you really need to prove that you have a passion and that you have an understanding for what it means to be a speech therapist. So there are 4 courses, 3 undergrad and 1 postgrad course that you can undertake in Ireland to qualify you as a speech therapist. And you might wonder, why should I study at Trinity rather than studying, for example, in London or studying in Galway? First of all, we have the dysphagia qualification here at Trinity. As Sarah mentioned, dysphagia is the swallowing disorder. This is a new qualification. I think we were the 3rd group of graduates to qualify with it. I think it was 100%, if not 99% of us graduated with this qualification, whereas I've heard that it may not be as high in other courses. Certainly in the UK, we have a strong dysphagia qualification that is not routinely offered in undergrad education in the UK. So we definitely have a lot of interest from UK market in speech and language therapy because we have this qualification. So it really sets us apart internationally. As we're in the heart of Dublin, you have placements in the greater Dublin area, where you have access to some of the greatest multidisciplinary teams in the country. For example, you're in Beaumont Hospital, you will have the privilege of working alongside, if you're very lucky, Orla Hardiman, the neurologist in Beaumont Hospital, or you might be working in the National Rehabilitation Hospital in Dún Laoghaire, which is a fantastic centre. We have a lot of strong research support here in Trinity. Every student undertakes a research project in their final year, and you're encouraged to get your research published and presented at conferences where you have the opportunity to network with internationally recognised speech therapists. We have a brand new clinic. So this building here is lovely and brand new, and our own clinic is there on Nassau Street, end of Nassau Street, beside the National Gallery. It's actually closed because it's at the weekend, but it's a brand new building. It only opened when we were in halfway through 2nd year, so it's nice to have a swanky new building, and we're the longest established SLT program in Ireland. Our lecturers as well are internationally renowned for their research and for their clinical practice. Sarah mentioned about the mental health facilities. It was one of our own lecturers, Dr. Irene Smith, or Dr. Irene Walsh, apologies, who has established that role in mental health in Ireland, and it was actually because of her research that those jobs are being developed. So you've got some of the greatest researchers, and they have the research as well as the clinical aspect as well. They have strong links with hospitals, CRC, health clinics as well. So they've got both aspects. So our course is divided into the theoretical component as well as a practical or a placement component. The theory comprises of both traditional lectures, as you would have in a lecture hall like this, as well as problem-based learning, which is a new research-supported style of learning where you're presented with a problem or a challenge or a scenario, and you have to set your own learning goals. So it's very self-directed learning. It's a learning curve to learn how to use this system in itself, but it really will support you in your future endeavours to keep up to date with research. The clinical component, on average, there is 1 day a week during term time, and then you have about 1 month a year as well of placements. So you have, as Sarah's mentioning, there's a wide mix of services and client groups. So I've had 2 autism placements, 2 children, and 2 adults as well. So you have a wide mix. In first year, you might be interested to know the general subjects that you undertake. So you'll have the medical aspects like anatomy and physiology. You have the arts, so you'd have developmental psychology, linguistics, syntax, and you have the bread and butter of what we do, speech language pathology. So in first year, it's very much what is normal development, what is typical development, what can I expect to see in your typical adult communication-wise or swallow-wise. The clinical aspect is the Connect program, which is a 1 day a week visit to an adult who has aphasia, which is the language impairment about 1/3 of people who have a stroke develop post-stroke. So that really is an eye-opener, and it's wonderful that it's established in Trinity, because it really shows you what it means to live with a communication disorder and shows you what it means to be a speech therapist, and gives you a sample of the meaning behind what it is that we do. We also do a baby study and a preschool study, so you're just observing typical development in infants and children. So we also do phonetics, which is so write what you hear rather than write it spelling. So this is every sound. Let's say the letter C has 2 sounds, S and K. So every sound has a letter in our case. So is this chicken or fish? The next one there. I don't know. Can anybody guess that one? Yeah. Peppa Pig is all the rage these days. And the last one? Anybody? You get used to it, honest, you do. So in second year, again, theory, you learn about the nature of communication disorders, like what is a stutter, or what is aphasia, or what is dysphagia. You study bilingualism, which is very important in our increasingly multicultural society, phonetics and conversation analysis. So you've 1 day a week of observation in second year, and then you've a month block before you start in third year. In third year, you learn how to manage, how to treat or provide therapy for those communication and swallowing disorders you learned about in second year. You study neurology and psychiatry, and statistics and research methods. These are all delivered I don't know what the word would be. These are all delivered by speech therapists, so that they're very angled towards our needs as speech and language therapists. So they're not going to be abstract. The neurology, for example, will cover the Parkinson's, will cover the motor neuron disease. So they're delivered by speech therapists. You also have 1 day a week in third year, as well as another month block. At that stage, you're a lot more hands-on. You are being supervised by speech therapists, but you are a lot more autonomous in your working. In your final year, you have just kind of managing of complex disorders. You have counselling, which is providing the theory behind all the practical skills that you've developed over the 4 years. You have general studies, which is exactly what it says in the tin, very general. And you have a research project. So we all undertake a research project in that first semester of final year, and encourage, like I said, to publish it, or encourage to presented at conferences. Again, 1 day a week, and we've 2 months instead of lectures during the second semester of placement. So when all your friends are finishing lectures in April, you will actually be finished in December. So you have a bit of a breather and you get to enjoy being a speech therapist for 2 months at that point. And you're nearly fully autonomous at that point. You need consultation with more complex cases, but you're expected to work nearly fully independently. So is this course for you? Hopefully yes. You need an interest in kind of science, languages, and psychology, but it's a very much an amalgamation of all three. So you don't need to be a chemistry whiz or fluent in French. It's just to have an interest and to have a spark of interest for these. More importantly would be your communication skills and your interpersonal skills. As we have been saying today, you can learn off a list of bones, or you can learn off a treatment protocol, but you can't learn to be a caring person, and you can't learn to have compassion. It's something that is ingrained in us, and it's something that is part of who we are. So speech and language therapy is very much a caring profession, and that is probably the most important thing that we would consider, a genuine compassion for others and for wanting to help. It's a full-time commitment. It is pretty much 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. You might get a half-day Fridays. You also have a full day's placement a week. You have a lot of preparation to do for that. So it's a pretty full-on commitment. You can still manage a part-time job, still have your hobbies, but it requires a lot of study and a lot of time commitment. The essence of what we do potentially is that we solve problems and we assist our clients in figuring out solutions to their own problems. So you must relish a challenge, because you can never predict what's going to walk in the clinic door on any given Monday. And you must be able to work independently as part of a team, which is probably true for most careers. But as we said, to be able to communicate with your team members in the multidisciplinary team is vital.